Hello and welcome to the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Programme. I'm Elliot Gotkin, I'm a journalist and with Laurent Nisri, co-host of this exclusive video interview series produced with the support of Solaris Bank, Rise and BPI France. Now, 2021 has been another bumper year for fintechs, with revenues, funding rounds, and the number of deals showing no signs of slowing down. Case in point, Banking Circle, which earlier this year was reportedly raising funds valuing the cross-border payment specialists at some $6 billion. The company's co-founder and CEO is Anders de la Cour, who joins me now. Great to see you, Anders.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So tell us more about Banking Circle.
So Banking Circle is a payments bank. It's a payment specialist. What we in fact do is everyone that operates and handles their end clients can be payment gateways, can be banks, can be other marketplaces. One way or another, they would like to service their end client with financial services. And we enable them to operate globally at a very high speed, whether they want to service their client base with payments or with working capital or other banking solution, we are there for them.
Okay, and you mentioned banking solutions. You actually hold a banking license, I think. Why is that important? Because not all payment-related fintechs have that.
It's important because we operate in the infrastructure. So we hold connections towards the central banks, and there we enable our clients to operate as non-bank financial institutions, but having a lot of capabilities that you actually need a banking license to have. So we launched 6 years ago, and today we are handling 6% of Europe's e-commerce, growing very fast with doing very narrowly what we do, simply supporting payment gateways, marketplaces, banks with, you could call them white label services for them to service their client base.
And you've got quite the roll call of customers as well, I think, including Stripe, Alibaba, First Data, among others. What have you seen happening in cross-border payments over the past 12 to 18 months? Have they really kind of had that pandemic explosion, if you like?
I think it's when the pandemic hit, we were all a bit scared because no one really knew what would happen. The transformation into e-commerce that probably accelerated the evolution within e-commerce 5-7 years ahead of what it would have been had we not seen the pandemic. That obviously came as a good thing for us because we support growth in payments, and a lot of our clients, as you also mentioned just now, are operating within the e-commerce space. So the trend here, the first trend I would highlight is the transformation from point of sale to e-commerce. We would obviously expect to see some kind of reverse trend, given now that the world reopens, people can go out, people can go to restaurants, but I think if you look at the e-commerce trend, it's here to stay and it's been enforced. So that was the first trend, I would say. The other thing is that marketplaces, payment gateways, they have tend to broaden their offering over the course of the last 18 months. So from only selling, say, payments or merchant card acquiring, they are now also looking into other banking-related services, among them embedded finance and working capital solutions, where we also have a very, very strong proposition through our solution with Uland that services clients like eBay and Shopify. It's a combination here of both the e-commerce trend and then the broadening of services are the two biggest trends, I would say.
Okay, and I think it was only 3 years ago that Banking Circle was technically sold for about $300 million. So if those funding reports are true, and your valuation was around $6 billion now, that would suggest a 20-fold increase in just 3 years. How do you justify this kind of increase in value?
So our funding process is running now, so I can't really comment on that. But I can say, generically speaking, if you grow fast, if you are then in an industry that is going through a transformation where you are very well positioned, and if you can prove very high unit economics and client retention rates, then you are in the right spot to become the global winner over time and then your valuation accelerates. We've seen that with other businesses within the financial tech space, like Stripe, Adyen, Revolut, where they become dominant within a specific category, and they can prove that the growth rates keep running with high unit economics. Then the valuation increases sharply.
Now, you yourself, I think, started life out as a lawyer. How did you go? How did you make the transition from this kind of stable, quote unquote, normal job to founding a fintech?
So you're right. I was a lawyer 10, 12 years ago. By DNA, I was never a really lawyer. I think that's probably the truth. I'm much more of an entrepreneur or a businessman. So I knew from the beginning that at some point I would jump ship and try something myself. Back in 2012 and 13, the term fintech had not been coined, but you could see a lot of that was what was happening. A new client group was forming. A big transformation in the aftermath of the credit crunch was happening within the financial industry. So it was because I simply thought that could be fun to try. So we raised 500,000 from in angel capital from an investor, and then we simply got going. Launched in 2015 together with the Danish bank Saxo Bank, and then EQT Partners, who's our majority shareholder today, bought the business in a management buyout in 2018 together with us.
You make it sound so simple. Presumably, it wasn't quite kind of so linear from like, okay, I decided to do this, we raised the money, and then we got going, and then that was that. Presumably, there were challenges that perhaps people thought you were a bit crazy. Perhaps people, slammed doors in your faces before you managed to get the funding, before Saxo Bank agreed to kind of, partner with you on this.
Yes, for sure. I think anyone that's going through a startup, there are big challenges every day that you have to sort out, and these challenges do not disappear. They just become different challenges as you grow. To me, it's been a lot of fun, and challenges are fun. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't, and there have been a lot of initiatives where we have not succeeded, and we have learned from them, and then a lot of initiatives where we have succeeded, and luckily the initiatives that we succeeded on were bigger and had more impact than the ones we didn't succeed on. So yeah.
So I mean, perhaps I'm just a bit of a sadist, and I like to hear about kind of the failures and the tough times. But perhaps you can share some of the less successful moments, or the moments where things weren't going quite according to plan, where perhaps you had some doubts or things you felt might not go the way you wanted.
Yes, of course. Like we founded the business in mid 2013, and it took much longer to actually launch the product than we'd expected. It took almost 1.5 years, and I think during that 1.5 years there was a lot of doubt because you still burn the money, you still try to get the platform up and running. It was a big relief when we launched in 2016, and we could see it take off on the banking circle side. In a similar way, when we launched Uland, our embedded finance business, for the first year, there's a lot of doubt because you don't know whether it takes off. You don't really know whether there's a product market fit before you actually try it. And when there's a product market fit, then you get a different challenge actually to meet them out. So I guess for the first 1.5 years, a lot of doubt whether this would actually work out. And you try a lot of different angles and different approaches where you realize that you don't know at that point in time whether they will work or not. I guess that's also the fun about it.
Indeed. Okay, well, look, Anders, don't go away because we're going to take a very quick break, after which we're going to continue our conversation with Banking Circle co-founder and CEO, Anders de la Cour. Welcome back, and don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. Now, Anders, I've got a few more questions for you about the kind of fintech and payment space in general. We mentioned, fintech deals, especially the deal that involved Banking Circle, having been sold before in this management buyout we just discussed. Should we expect to see more mergers and acquisition activity in the fintech space and in the payment space in particular? Do you think there's going to be some kind of reckoning? Will there be a shakeout and consolidation going on?
I think we will see that trend continuing. So I think you can divide this into two brackets. In my view, you can say the first wave of financial tech businesses that were founded between 2000 and 2010. These businesses are now quite big, and they see a lot of consolidation. And then the next wave of fintechs that were founded between like 2010 and up until now, which are still raising funds because growing very fast. And there you would probably see a lot of capital boom in, and then within the next 5-10 years, these businesses will then go through a consolidation as well. So yes, I think that the activity will only continue. In my view.
And I know you don't want to talk in detail about Banking Circle's valuations because you're in the middle of funding round, I think you said. But in terms of the sector as a whole, whether it's the boom in SPACs that we've seen, whether it's the stock market or whether it's fintechs kind of raising funds like no tomorrow with valuations going through the roof, do you not have any sense that maybe there's a little bit of frothiness or a little bit of over exuberance, perhaps even irrational exuberance going on right now?
It's a good question. I think looking at an industry, as investors, they would have to take, say, approaches towards the entire industry. And there's no doubt that the financial industry is going through the biggest transformations many, many years. So there is a lot of opportunity out there. So you could say there is the financial tech industry. You could mention a different industry, green energy, where you would also see a lot of opportunity. And when you have these transformations that creates a new blue ocean, everyone wants to get in there. And as investors, I think you would obviously love to back the winners. You cannot be sure that this single business is the winner in the beginning. Hence, you have to bet a bit broader. And if every investors or all investors do that, then obviously a lot of liquidity is in the industry. And to me, it's for the benefit of eventually for the consumer, because they will get better solutions, and with better solutions and better innovation, eventually that will benefit everyone. And then yes, there'll be some winners and some investors that will make a lot of money, and there might be some that are not the winners, and there the returns might be a bit lower. But in general, if I'm looking at the industry, I think investors are doing the right bet now.
And you mentioned green energy as one kind of trend, obviously sustainability and environmental awareness. Very much on investors' minds, whether they're VCs or whether they're retail investors as well. How does that play into the way that payment companies are operating? Are they kind of being this force for good? Are they helping with things like financial inclusion and environmental sustainability?
I definitely think they are. So I think what the governments did back in the aftermath of the credit crunch was to deregulate the financial industry and then try to increase competition. That has really succeeded. And when you increase the competition, you get better solutions towards the end clients, and eventually that will also lead to more inclusion on that side.
And in terms of bringing disparate parts of the economy from around the world, bringing people together, whether it's merchants, whether it's financial institutions, and whether it's customers at the other end. Do you feel? Do you get a sense that there is kind of like a higher purpose in terms of just beyond just kind of having a financial fintech that is kind of doing these things and making payments easier? Is there like a higher purpose to it all?
No, I think there is, because statistically, financial inclusion leads to better macroeconomic environments. It leads to higher education. If people have a bank account, they can start doing savings. They can start receiving their salary of that bank account. So definitely, I think the fintech industry here is doing a lot to push that, which eventually comes back to the governments and the regulators that have opened for that kind of opportunity. And then we in Banking Circle are really trying to support that by allowing as many as possible to operate globally on our rails.
Okay. Well, Anders, I'm afraid we've actually run out of time, believe it or not. So I really just want to thank Anders de la Cour, co-founder and CEO of Banking Circle, for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anders. And I'll be back again next week with another big name from the world of finance and technology. We do hope everyone watching will be able to join us again then. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with all the exclusive interviews and content from the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Programme via www.parisfintechforum.com. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.